Welcome everybody, good morning. I'm mindful that we don't have that much time, so I've put together, I think it's about 24 slides there or thereabouts. A lot of this will be information sharing today, but we'll just see how the pace of the slides go. And if there's opportunity, there's two in particular moments throughout the presentation where I think might be quite nice just to pause and have a wee bit of a practice. And I'm hopefully going to try and do that as we start just now. So if you're anything like me, you will have came along to this morning's session with a gazillion things going on in your life, but certainly going on with inside of you. So by that, I'll be talking a bit more about this. But really what I'm referring to is your thoughts, your physical body, your actions and your emotions, your feelings. And I'm just touching on these as being principles of the cognitive behaviour approaches. And again, we'll elaborate on this in this wee presentation. So just to get started, just bear with me, I'm hoping that this will. Yep, so my intention for you from the session are these three takeaways. So if by in 40 minutes you leave the session having a wider understanding or having built on your understanding of the principles of the cognitive behaviour approach, then that is wonderful. Also, if you are confident leaving of and having some sort of sense how you can use specific tools and ways and techniques to put them into practice when you're caring for and supporting other people, that's another win-win. And also just some light touches at the very end to give you some hints and tips and ways and other suggestions of how you can help other people to build this into everyday life. Okay, so again, if you're anything like me, maybe this is what your mind is looking like right now. I'm sure you just all haven't got up and just jumped on this wee presentation. You'll have had to feed yourself, wash yourself, maybe think about things that are going on in the day, or perhaps still have to do that. And all of the things that you maybe have done, thought, did, felt, will also be related to other people too. So there'll be things there to do with work, there'll be things there to do with family members. And again, that might not even just be around today, that could have been things that have kind of carried over from yesterday or earlier even in the week. And again, it might be related to things that are on later in the week for you. I guess in summary, what I'm trying to illustrate here with this slide is we are all busy, but our brains are very busy as well, and our bodies are very busy in the background trying to process all of this. So if I'm going to share some information, we know that when you're trying to kind of settle into these sessions, it can be tricky when your mind's maybe on yesterday, in the future, and maybe less so in the present. So I'm just going to invite you, no great elaborate practice here, but I'm just going to invite you to just kind of settle into a nice comfortable position in your own chair just now. So wherever you're sat, kitchen table, on your sofa, whatever that is, just readjust your body and just kind of find a nice comfortable position. I'll always refer that to your seated bones. So just use your skeleton to kind of settle into. If you're comfortable enough, just close your eyes. And if you're not, just find something ahead of your centre gaze just to let your eyes rest on so that you're not straining your eyes. It could be paint on the wall, a door handle on a door, anything like that. And all I'm going to invite you to do just for 1 minute, 60 seconds, is just to relax, just to notice your body, notice your thoughts, notice any sounds around. Could be weather outside, could be other people in the house or where you're working. Could be your stomach letting you know it's nearly lunchtime. And just follow where you're breathing, where your breath goes and where your breath flows. You might notice that at your nose. You might notice your breath at your throat, upper chest, stomach. Just you notice where your own breath takes place and just follow it, not interrupting it. And I'm just going to be quiet for about 20 seconds, and then I'll invite you back to open your eyes and just readjust. And just very, very gently allow a little amount of light in under the bottom of your eyelids, just through your eyelashes. And just when you're ready, open your eyes. And again, just allow yourself to kind of change position, have a wee stretch, have a yawn, and just let's now focus on the rest of the content for this particular session. As you have just demonstrated to yourself and just practiced, outside life has a lovely way of inviting, finding its way inside. And often, sometimes, when we don't take the step back, 60 seconds even, like you've just done, to just calibrate and take note of what exactly has been happening, what exactly has been going on. All too often, individuals will do these practices when they're in the full flow of catastrophe, when things are extremely overwhelming, where in actual fact that's a great life skill to start with anyway, is by just practicing stepping back and just taking stock when it's in so much catastrophe, when things are going on, rather than getting caught up and getting almost like a washing machine turned around in it. But it's ideally better if you can practice that when things aren't occurring, when things aren't full on, when things don't feel so stressful. So good wee ways to practice this, even for ourselves before we help and support other people, is by perhaps maybe practicing ourselves first thing in the morning when we've had our coffee or we have popped out at breakfast, before we take off or sit down to the computer, that you just take 60 seconds to close your eyes, rest your eyes on the wall or a door handle, whatever's in front, just as you've done, and just tune in to what has been occurring in your outside life, and just noticing how that's impacting on you inside. Sometimes, again, what happens is it's usually at the end of our day, isn't it, that when we go home we feel so tired, so overwhelmed. It's only at that point that we begin to notice we have the sore shoulder, the headache, the tension in the jaw, or perhaps maybe our tummy feels a wee bit off, whereas those perhaps maybe have been little red flags throughout our day, but because we've not checked in and tuned in really to recognise and notice, then it just carries on in the background, that builds up and builds up. So that would be my first wee kind of share of today. Get into the way of kind of checking in inside to figure out what exactly has been happening on the outside and how it really is affecting you. So these are great life skills to practice, and in my background, as some of you who have maybe joined my previous sessions for spring, is being a mental health nurse and a CBT therapist. CBT has got a great evidence base to help build certain life skills, not just for when somebody is unwell and is at the point of despair. I'm a great advocate and very passionate about using these tools and techniques and principles from a very prevention point of view and a proactive standpoint too. And I also put in there just a bit of building present moment awareness, which some often is referred to as mindfulness. And we've just did that with that starting practice there before I started to share more of these slides. So why use these type of approaches, these two in particular that I'm mentioning? Well, it's not just because I'm saying that they're good, or I've read something in a book, or I've seen it in telly last night, or read it in a magazine. These are actually evidence-based approaches that the overarching guidelines, if you like, that keep us safe in the same way if we needed a hip replacement or an ankle joint. The NICE guidelines also look at all things mental health. And these two approaches, CBT and present moment awareness, have a great scientific background in the evidence base. So we as people who care for other people and support other people can be comfortable in the knowledge knowing that we're using evidence-based approaches and techniques. So if we're really going to focus on what are the key principles, what do I need to know if I'm going to help myself and also help support and care for other people using these approaches, where do I start? What's the best place to kind of set off from? So if you can really grasp the idea of there are three key principles really that are followed along the lines of cognitive behaviour approaches, and that is what you're looking at on the screen just now. So, you know, what you say to yourself, i.e. your thoughts, the way that you talk to yourself, i.e. your thoughts, has a direct impact on how you feel, which is your emotions, and vice versa. So there will have been days you'll notice that you feel frustrated and angry, but you can look that back and connect that back to a certain way that you've been talking to yourself. So you might be feeling angry, and when you look it back and connect it back, you can find out that that's maybe because you've been saying that email I got from what that person sent, and the language that they used, or the kind of way that they approach the situation really has frustrated me. And again, in turn, you'll notice that when we are in tune with our emotions, good or bad, that whole emotional landscape, recognizing where is my emotion in this moment, or this morning, or this afternoon, this evening, you'll also recognize it's also connected to your actions, your behaviors, the way that you respond and react. So again, if we take that same analogy just said, that idea of that you've been sent an email that you're unhappy about, you'll talk to yourself in that manner if you felt it was not just. You will feel maybe angry and frustrated around that email, and also your actions, your responses will follow suit. So in summary, your thoughts affect your emotions and feelings, and vice versa. Your emotions also impact on the way you behave, your actions, vice versa. And also what's not illustrated here is all the while your physical body is listening in and tuning in. So at a cellular level, your body is impacted upon by the way you talk to yourself, how you feel, and also what you are doing day to day. Now, if all of these things, your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, and your physical body are all the cornerstones of you inside, that is going to show up in your outside world, your life outside. So if you're feeling angry and frustrated about that email and you're reacting in a specific way, that in turn is going to feed out to your outside life. So those around you will notice that it might impact on the way that you will send emails for the rest of the day, and so on. So in summary, if we're really simplifying the key principles of CBT, it's the triangle of your thoughts, behaviour and emotions. But when we unpack it, you've also got your physical body in there too. So I have another kind of simple way of explaining this. And I feel it's an analogy that most folk will be able to relate to. And again, it's maybe something that you might find useful when you're caring and supporting other people. I certainly find using this analogy in the screen is so good in my own life, but also for people that I also care for and support clinically. So if we're looking here and just think of that analogy of the word plate, okay, and you'll notice the L standing for life, all the things that are going on in your outside world. Now, if we just look to the kind of picture on the right side of the screen, you'll see that plate with various examples there that any one person might be experiencing, or maybe experiencing all of them. And just for a moment, I'm going to ask you to pause and just think, if that was your plate, if what have you got in your plate? What has life dished you up today? Or what are you, trying to digest in your life this month? Think about all the things that you've been dished up this week. Your own life, not the people you care for or support, just you. And take a moment to just look at some of the examples and think, can I identify with that? So let's take relationships. Have you been dished up certain scenarios and experiences this week that has been related to relationships? Maybe people at home, it could be work, it could be a neighbour, and so on. Also, the pandemic that we're all experiencing and living through just now, has there been elements of that you've been served up this week that you're kind of spinning? And so on. You could pick any one of these, but also you will have your own ideas. So just take a wee moment to think, what has my plate been looking like this week? Has it been quite full? Has it been overflowing? Or actually, has it been quite easy to digest all the things that I've been served up and dished up between Monday and today? And now I'm going to ask you just to focus on the 4 cornerstones on the table around the plate. Because as you are spinning the plate of maybe relationships, and you're maybe spinning another plate of money, or they're all interweaved and just overflowing your plate, just recognise all the while when you are attending to all of these things in your outside world, that those 4 cornerstones are the areas where you have a lot more control over versus what you actually have in your plate. And it's interesting, as human beings, we are inherently wired to jump straight in and start sorting everything that's on the plate. But in actual fact, again, like you did at the top of this session, the 60 seconds to stand back and say, right, hold on a wee minute, and how am I feeling physically? So when I'm trying to manage and spin the plate of these relationships I've got going on in life, and the work and the money and the health, how's it impacting on my physical body? How's it impacting on my actions, emotions, and my thoughts? So just to summarise this, the 4 cornerstones, the physical, the actions, the emotions, and your thoughts, are all the areas within you that you have a lot more control over in life. The items that you are dished up on your plate, you've got less control over. And that, again, is a fantastic life skill to know for yourself, but also to share for other people too. And again, if you're working with an individual on a one-to-one basis, even using that wee analogy and getting that idea of, right, what have you got on your plate? Is your plate full? Is it overflowing? Get them to write down all of these things on the plate, but also then move into explain the 4 cornerstones and ask around that. So since this relationship hasn't been working, or since the pandemic has hit your family in this way, how's it been impacting on you physically, thoughts, emotions, and actions? So if we're going to take all of these principles, the thoughts, the emotions, and so on, and put them into practice, a good way of kind of shoring this up, framing this up, if you like, would be the bullet points on the screen just now to help get you started. So if you're working in a session with an individual, and it's maybe a person you've been seeing for a wee while, so it's not somebody completely brand new or a new referral, then of course you're going to reflect on things from the previous session. How have they been from the previous session? And if you jump to the very last one, the closing with a plan of action, that first bullet point and last bullet point, I always call them bookends of a session, like a bookend on a bookcase. You want to support a session at the beginning, and you want to have a nice support of it at the end to keep it all contained and tidy, but clear and focused for you and the person you're caring for. So if you always start a session by, how did you get on with that thing you said you were going to work on across the week? That's a great way to start reflection, than opposed to, how's your week been, where you'll get lots of information. Be specific and keep it tidy from the very beginning. Also, you then would want to move on to say, right, that's great, and I'm really encouraged by hearing how that's gone for you this past week. And you might only take 5 or 7 minutes to do that reflection. Quickly moving on to a collaborative agenda. So explaining to that individual, right, let's get 2, if not 3, maybe 4 things that we can focus on in this session that's going to be meaningful to you and moving you forward, and also bringing about really healthy changes in your life. So again, that might be stuff around the thinking, it might be stuff around their actions, their behaviours, or indeed their physical bodies and so on. But in order for you to do that and take an item at a time from the agenda, always use guided discovery moving into goal setting. So guided discovery is really just, in essence, you're not telling that individual the answers. They know themselves better than MD would know, better than you could ever try to know. So the take I always take when I'm working with somebody would be, okay, so that's interesting that you're wanting to work on the way you've been talking to yourself or the way you've been feeling over the past week. Let's take that just now. So can you think of a time over the past week when you noticed that you felt low and so on? Right, what was happening? Who was there? What time? And so on. So you're doing the guided discovery. They're giving you some information, but you're moving with nice questioning in a direction that's getting more information that you can then pick some things from to help set goals. So if they pick up and recognise through that guided discussion with you that you've facilitated that they're going to their bed all the time, they're using a lot more pain relief because they're feeling their body sore, achy and so on, then maybe that will give you a lovely goal to set and say, right, let's look at a couple of things in your day or a couple of things across the week that can really help bring about change for you. And that moves you into then setting goals for those things. And that then leads you on to the very last bookend, keeping it very clear and focused. So always closing and saying to that individual, are you clear on what you are going to be working on between now and the next session? In CBT, we always use references such as homework. I don't like that word. School wasn't always a pleasant place for people, myself included. So I think sometimes it's just maybe nice not to use certain heavy language like that. I'll just keep it jargon free and say, right, what can we be working on between now and the next session as an item of your goal setting plan that we've put in place. So again, if you are taking an individual through that kind of before that goal setting process, you want to kind of figure out, right, is it their thoughts they want to work on, is it their actions they want to work on, and so on. So the next couple of slides are examples of ways you can approach with that person in a collaborative way, so that both of you together recognising, right, that would be useful for tackling your thoughts or identifying thoughts, that would be useful for tackling and identify actions, and so on. So let's take a wee look at them now. So if you were working with somebody and wanting to look at planning some goals for them around unhelpful thoughts, one first step you might want to do with that person is by looking at these 4 bullet points. So you, like so I'm boring. What they think about other people, nobody likes me. So if they really think they are boring, then they will also have thoughts around that nobody likes them. Also, what does that mean to the outside world? Well, they might assume that it's unfair, but also that kind of future image that they have in their mind might be, what's the point of trying? So it's really important to maybe first say to them, think of a time where you felt low and stressed. What were some of the unhelpful thoughts you had around that time? Think of a time when you were panicked. Tell me 1 or 2 of the things you were saying to yourself at that moment. That helps you gather a couple of unhelpful thoughts, which then lets you move over to identifying what style of thinker they are. Now, again, just we're time limited in this session, but
and can I just come in there? Sorry, it's Leanne here. Just sorry to interrupt you. Just in case there's any confusion, we don't have any of the staff on today's session. This is sort of opened out just to the public and to the client, sort of just in case there was any confusion. We don't have any of our own staff members on here today.
No problem, that's fine. Thank you. And just moving over to, if we're talking about unhelpful thoughts, and again, you know, we're no different, but we will all have unhelpful thoughts. So again, we will all have unhelpful thinking styles. So a really good technique to get into the way of is taking an unhelpful thought and running it alongside all of these bullet points that you see on the screen just now. So if I've had an unhelpful thought that might be, I'm never going to do this, I'll never be able to make the change, or everything will always go wrong if I try this out. I want to take that thought and say, is this all or nothing thinking? Does that sound what that's like? Does this sound like I'm catastrophizing, and so on? So I want to take the thought and see what style of thinker I am. They're great life skills. So identifying certain thoughts that you have, a good way to do that is just say, what are the things I say to myself when I start to feel that way? What are the things I start to say to myself when I'm doing those things? That lets you get maybe 1, 2, 3 thoughts, and then you take those thoughts to this slide and say, right, what style do they fall under? Now again, it's a great learning because you're able to say, now I'll give you a self-example of that. I know in my younger life, I would catastrophize. I know that, and I know it's got the potential even in adult life to still be there, but it's dialed down because I now know the tools and techniques to put in place. So I know I could go from like not to hot on a thought that maybe, if I think of school, maybe exam time, getting really catastrophizing about it. And in actual fact, now as an adult, I'm able to dial that down and know, yes, it can still annoy me, it can still be there, but it doesn't stop me progressing and moving forward and trying out things and so on. So identifying the thoughts and also recognising what the style of thinking is that's attached to that. And again, when you are working on all of that, these are great bullet points on the screen just now. This might be another wee tool or technique that might be more easier for you to try. And again, it might be, right, so if I've identified the way that I'm talking to myself as an unhelpful thought, any one of these bullet points might be good in terms of tackling it. So the very one that works for me all the time is the second last bullet point. How might you feel about this in 6 months? So if I've got a thought that's nagging and it's annoying me and it's been buzzing about in my head for 3 days, that bullet point to me, that wee tool to ask myself, look, is this thought going to matter in 6 months' time? If I can answer no to that, or maybe just slightly, then at least I'm a wee bit forwards with it. The next one, the very last one, other ways of looking at this situation. Well, to me, I would always say, right, those that love and care for me, what would they say if they heard me saying this thought out loud? They would say, that's not true. You know you can do it. You know that you're working at things and so on. So these are almost like a wee menu, the ones on the screen just now. And you've got this to take after this session. So you don't need to work through all of these bullet points with an unhelpful thought. There'll be ones that work for certain thoughts. And if you do work through all the bullet points for one particular thought, that's fine. It doesn't matter. You can get to cherry pick. You get to choose. So it's a nice wee kind of sample, put together a menu card, if you like, that you can cherry pick from to help tackle any unhelpful thoughts that you might have. Also, for thinking about actions and behaviours, a great wee tool and technique to kind of apply to yourself are these 3 questions. So if you recognise that you are not feeling great or your mood has altered and your thoughts are attached to that are very the same, take a step back and say to yourself, right, what have I started doing since I've been feeling this way? So you might recognise I've started skipping meals, I've started going to my bed early, or I've started lying on in bed in the morning. Also ask yourself, what have I stopped doing since feeling this way? And it might be speaking to a specific person, it might be attending to maybe matters that you need to attend to, like finances and so on. And also, what have I avoided since feeling this way? And they're great wee tools. So again, it might be I'm avoiding a text message that came in yesterday, or I'm avoiding a letter that came through the post, or I'm avoiding the neighbour next door because I don't want them asking many questions about what's been happening. So 3 really lovely, simple questions. Get into the way of asking them all around your emotions, because that will give you nice answers as in ways to make change and goal set. So if you've started doing something that's not good for you, that would be a good goal to tackle. If you've stopped doing something that is good for you, i.e. talking to a family member that you know is very caring and supportive to you, if you've stopped doing that, then again, you want to maybe put a goal in there to reintroduce that again. And again, problem solving is great too. And I won't get through all of these bullet points, but I wanted to put them into this session so that you have them. Problem solving is probably one of the most popular ways and approaches used when in CBT. And it is for a reason, because it's so good for all the things that you've got spinning on your plate. So if you have a relationship difficulty, or you have a financial worry, or you have a health issue, could be related to medication, it doesn't matter what you've been dished up on your plate, whether that's life in general on your plate or it's a specific day. You can take any one of these things off of there and use the 8 steps to problem solving to help tackle what's going on for you. What I would say is the first bullet point of the 8 steps, the first step of the 8 is so important. Make sure you're identifying what the problem is. Be very clear about that. And then as you move through all the other steps, it will be a lot more easier. So take the time in that first step to say, what is really my problem? I'm talking about the neighbours here, but really what is my problem? And what you might say to yourself is, I really don't like where I stay. So that might be, or where I live, that might be the big problem. And then as you move through it, the neighbours might be a part of that. So the 8 steps to problem solving, use that as a tool and an approach to help tackle a lot of the things you've been dished up on your plate. And just very quickly, some other wee hints and tips for emotions and your physical body. Colours are a great way to attach to moods. So, you know, orange and yellows, even visualising that is a great way to kind of say, right, well, I'm feeling really content, I'm feeling really safe, I'm feeling really quite happy, whatever happy is to you. But also, again, it might be more shades of grey, and it could be maybe shades of dark blue, navies, for example, that maybe are showing that perhaps maybe it's a harder moment for you and your emotions to kind of move. So try and maybe even attach measuring your emotions to different colours. That's a brilliant skill. I always have a pack of coloured pencils, and they're always in where I'm working. And again, sometimes if I'm in mood measurement, I'll have a look at the colouring in pencils and say to myself, right, well, it's that colour that I'm kind of feeling this morning, or it's that's the colour I want to be feeling this afternoon. What is it I need to do in order to move more towards that colour of emotion? Also, emojis are great as well. Most folk are aware of those through phone and obviously social media channels. So again, you know, like a completely blank face, sad face, straight up to a really smiley face. And again, noticing moment to moment, morning, afternoon, evening, where you are on that scale. Another great life skill, because you're able to catch it. And you're able to say, well, if I want to move up that scale and be a bit more smiley on it, what actions do I need to tackle? Or what thoughts do I need to tackle? Or what do I need to do for my physical body in order to be further up that scale? Your physical body is always listening, said this earlier on, at a cellular level. So again, nice simple breathing practices like we practiced at the beginning is a great way just to tune in, zone in, finding out where everything goes and where everything flows. I always say that, just settle in, 60 seconds is all you need to do it. And your eyes don't need to be closed. You could be putting out a tea, a coffee, a sandwich, walking the dog. You could be walking up a flight of stairs. If you just use that time to tune in to your breathing, that's a great way of taking care of yourself and your physical body too. And obviously movement not out running all the time or out hiking. It can be anything, it really can. And again, getting into the way of using scales for your physical body. So 0, having not any pain or discomfort or tension, and 10 being really in discomfort with a lot of pain and tension. And again, measuring that across your day as well, so that you're avoiding getting home at the end of the day and that really being, you know, the sucker punch where you think, my head is splitting, my body, my shoulder, my back feels so sore. There will be pockets in your day you can interrupt and do something for that, avoiding feeling that way later on in the day. So if you are guiding yourself using these materials and you're deciding then, right, it's my thoughts I fancy doing more work on, then you take those slides that I've explained and showed and gave some examples to, and you plan some goals in order to start making changes to the way you talk to yourself, your inner radio station. I mean, if you're tuning in to yourself talking critically all day, every day, that's definitely a station you want to switch, or you want to turn the volume down on that so that perhaps maybe you can hear other things that are going to move you forward to flourish, okay, rather than fail. So guide yourself, decide, where am I wanting to work? Is it my behaviours, my actions? Is it my feelings? Is it my physical body? Or is it my thoughts? Make the decision on one place to start, and then you will definitely be very effective in your goal setting. And just a couple of more wee slides left before we finish off. Goal setting, it's so important that you're very smart when you are doing this technique. And some of you may or may not have heard of the SMART approach. So just as it's saying on the screen just now, whatever you are planning and setting as a goal for yourself, just make sure that it's specific, that it's definitely going to be in keeping with making good changes for you. It's moving you in a direction that you want to be going, a healthy direction and a helpful direction. You want whatever goal you're setting yourself to be measurable. So again, like I've just said, with your physical body or your emotions, you could use emojis, the colours, the scale of 0 to 10. Just always, with any goal you set yourself, make sure you're measuring progress. And again, and that could be even speaking to somebody else and checking in with them and getting them to ask you the questions and working with you to measure. Make sure that they're achievable. Don't be setting yourself up for something that is a huge stretch. I would never do that for myself, and least of all guide somebody else to aim for a goal that's just far too much. I would always say tiny crumb. Start it really, really, really small so that you can achieve something out of that crumb every single day and be proud of that. Make it relevant and realistic. Okay, don't be like something, if you want to get back out socialising again, that you've decided, oh, my goal is I'm going to hire a hall and have a massive party. It's not immediately relevant, and it's not immediately realistic for you either. And also time bound. Make sure you actually schedule a date when you want that goal to be complete. That's very good for motivation and determination. Motivation doesn't arrive special delivery in the post. You've got to put wee things in place that spur that on for you. So having deadlines in place, realistic ones, is a great way to do that. Again, so if I'm working with an individual or I'm setting this for myself, I'll always ask myself these questions, right? So what is the goal? Is it important to you? Am I using the SMART checklist as well? What things might block this, get in the way, scupper it? And also, have I got a date when I want to achieve that? And then also ways that I can plan another item to chip away at in terms of my goals. So I'm going to show you just two more wee slides that kind of illustrate maybe how I put this down in paper. So 5 points, that's just the same questions I've read out in the previous slide. Have them at the top of your paper, and then just the pale kind of pinky colour in the columns below this, you'll see, just start writing in underneath that. So what's the goal? Make sure you're clear about it. What is the goal? Why is it important to you? Again, a small paragraph. Don't write lots, just keep it nice, clear and focused. So you work through points 1 to 5, listing all of this. And then you will have action items. So is it just going to be me that's going to work on this item this week or today, or is somebody else going to help me? So for example, if you want to go to an appointment and collect something, let's say it's the shop or a prescription, that might be the action item that you're doing today, and it might be it might just be you, or it might be a family member or a friend that's going to accompany you to do that. And make sure you're also saying when that is. So it will be at 2 o'clock today, between 2 and 3:30. So really keep yourself tidy with the details, who else is involved, what else is going on, and exactly what it is, the item that you're wanting to achieve towards the bigger goal that you've planned for yourself. Now, just finishing off, and I know I have probably rattled through all of these things, but at least you've got them to go back to, and if there are any questions, if after today, then by all means clear in the end, and the team can field them back, and I'll supply more answers to this. Ways to practice this. I always say to individuals, see, when you wake up in the morning, we all have a choice, we really do. I'm going to take you back and remind you of that slide of the plate analogy. So rather than go to what's on your plate, remember you've got a choice, more control over your thoughts, your actions, your feelings, and your physical body. So you have a choice whether or not you tune into your body in the day to take care of it. You have a choice whether you tune into the way that you're talking to yourself and your thoughts to take care of it, and so on. So minute your toe hits the floor, you have a choice. That's my wee mantra. I always say, today I've got a choice in these 4 cornerstones. It's up to me to take care of them so that that impacts my day and what's going on in my plate. Often it can be really good as well to set aside specific time in your day. In CBT, we always called it the worry window. To me, I don't know that it's always to sit down and worry. So to me, I always see it as almost like a work window. That's going to be my wee bit of work time on the kind of goal setting and the kind of tools that I'm going to be using. Usually somewhere between after tea time and bedtime is a good time to do this. At 7:30 I've popped in there as an example, no more than half an hour, and just almost kind of get that planning going and evaluating how things are going, your measurements and so on, i.e. the smiley faces, the colours, all of that. Spend that wee half an hour and dedicate that to yourself and work that around. Make sure that less distractions, no interruptions. You have opportunities so rich in your day, whether that's the people you come into contact with, places that you've been, all the activities that you're engaging in and all the experiences that have been served up to you across your day, use them ways to test things out, to test out stuff that you're doing with your thoughts, actions, body and emotions. Really good to have wee reminder cues. So my phone alerts are always good for that. So I have a phone alert that goes off every single night at 7:25, not weekends, but Monday to Friday, and that's me to do my work window. And that's for things that could be for work, it could be things for me personally, but I allow myself that half an hour just to transfer from here down into black and white and kind of get things tidied up and clear and focused. And always, always measure things daily, because that really helps build motivation. And also it stops you going back the way. You're able to stop it, nip it in the bud and decide what is it I'm needing goal-wise to set or tool-wise to use to move forwards. So I'm really mindful. I have said loads. I'm aware we've probably got 1 minute left. So I'm just going to ask you to just take that moment just to even just gather, I don't know, some sort of sense of all the things I've mentioned to you. What is the one thing that has stuck out to you in this 45-minute session? What's the one thing that you think really spoke to you that perhaps maybe you will go away and maybe even schedule to practice today? So I'll give you a wee moment or two just to capture that. Okay, so it's just left for me to say thank you so much for taking the time from your day to join this wee session. So thank you.